Hi, my name is Henry Clay, your ninth Secretary of State and famed proponent of the American system. Wow, it sure is great to be here today in this wonderful 21st century boarding school. Let me tell you, don't take all these amazing inventions around you for granted. What I wouldn't have given for a ballpoint pen and a book of light when I was drafting the Compromise 1850. And do not get me started on microwave ovens. Yum. You know, during my lifetime, I came up against quite a few obstacles, chief among them the growing tension between the American North and South. Abolition. Now that's what I call a hot button issue. And I was caught right in the middle of it. The great compromiser, they called me. Trying to keep this great country of ours together. But of course, I'm not here to talk to you about myself. You all know who I am. Indeed, I am here to spin you a yarn about a young man named Michael McCarthy. A 2-year senior and one of your classmates here at Taft. You may not be aware of this fact, but Michael McCarthy faced many obstacles over his 2 years in this school, just as I had in my over 49 years in politics. You know, Michael and I share a great deal in common. I was famously hot-headed and steadfast in my beliefs, once famously remarking, I would rather be right than president. So was Michael. I firmly believed that compromise could always be achieved, that two sides need not fight simply because they disagree. So does Michael. I was opposed to the spread of slavery. So is Michael. Let me tell you a story. It was the first day of school, the year 2010. That's a high number, isn't it? Michael arrived in Taft's main circle, 1 part eager, 2 parts nervous. How could he hope to fit in as a new junior? Would he find friends at this new red brick school? These are the thoughts that swirled in Michael's mind as he stepped from his car, which is quite the invention, by the way. I mean, cars? A trip that takes 40 minutes today used to take me a fortnight. To the greetings of his old boy, John Boyd, a boisterous, brown-eyed fellow from Woodbury, Connecticut. Now, Johnny boy, he saw the trepidation in Michael's eyes, so he took him one of those great deep breaths of his and announced, "Listen, I know you're nervous, but trust me, you'll fit in just fine." Something told Michael there was truth in those words. Right then, he was drowning in a sea of strangers. But with time, everything would be all right. He would not just survive at Taft, but thrive, just as I thrived in the Kentucky General Assembly as a representative of Fayette County, and later as Secretary of State under President John Quincy Adams. John Quincy. Now there was a character if I ever met one. But that's a story for another day. The important lesson to be learned from Michael's story, as well as mine, is that success does not come to the pessimistic, nor to the misanthropic. Could Michael have risen to become the successful figure he is today without forging connections, or if he had simply wallowed in despair? Could war between the North and South have been staved off for so long if I had not listened to foreign viewpoints and thrown my hands up and declared, "This is pointless"? The answer is a resounding no. Taft, much like the United States itself, is a collection of groups, boarders and day students, boys and girls. When did that happen? That was new. Each with their own set of views. But despite these differences, you must come together if you wish to succeed as a school. You must compromise. You must meet in the middle. You must work to understand one another and search out a common ground. Because if you do not, if you fail in this task, your community will be torn asunder, just as America was torn asunder in the war between the states, which broke out only months before my death in June of 1852. Through his time at Taft, Michael has learned all these lessons and more. He has learned to reach out to others, athletes, so forth, even if they may, at first glance, seem to share little in common with him. When he has been faced with conflict, as when arguing in English class, he has paused to consider the other side of the coin and to seek out a middle position we can all agree on. From the first time he read about me, his personal hero, Henrietta Clay, in his junior U.S. history class, he has kept me always in the back of his mind, where whenever he is faced with trouble, I whisper to him, "Compromise can be achieved." If Taft and the United States are like steamships, then compromise and understanding are the engines that propel them down the Mississippi River of life. And Michael and I are the coalmen, shoveling fuel always into the steam apparatus of their respective institutions. Michael couldn't make it here today, but if he had, I'm sure he would want to let you know we have 46 days left until graduation. Through compromise, let's make them count. Thank you.
I'm Maddie James, and I'm a four-year senior. October 12th, 2008 is a day I will never forget. It's the day I almost lost my mom. I had been at Taft for just 1 month before it was time to head home for fall long weekend. I eagerly counted down the days until I would see my family and friends, and I couldn't wait to finally feel home again. I had been struggling with the transition to boarding school and still found myself feeling homesick, so I took refuge in the thought of going home soon. That Sunday of fall long weekend, October 12th, my mom went out for one of her daily bike rides. Now, before you get the wrong idea, my mom does not go out on leisurely bike rides. Instead, she is an avid cyclist who has cycled in Europe along the stages of the Tour de France and cycles multiple times a week. She knows the rules of the road and is a smart, cautious cyclist. However, that Sunday morning, I was woken up by my older brother Jake telling me our mom had been in an accident. How serious it was, we didn't know yet, but we could sense the fear in my dad's voice when he had called to tell us what happened. When I heard his voice shake because he was holding back tears, I knew this was not a small accident. After several hours of anxiously waiting to find out what had happened, my dad called from the hospital to fill me and my brothers in. My mom had been cycling with a friend in a small town called Nahant, Massachusetts, when she was hit head-on by a car going roughly 30 miles per hour. She had broken 11 bones, mostly on her left side, including her leg, elbow, shoulder, and almost all of her left ribs. Because her ribs were broken and her chest was almost completely crushed, her lungs kept collapsing, a condition known as flail chest. Only 50% of people with flail chests survive. On top of all of these injuries, her spleen had ruptured, causing internal bleeding, and there were bruises on her kidney, liver, and bladder. Immediately following the accident, my mom was taken to a small hospital in Salem where, thankfully, the doctors realized the severity of her condition and made the decision to have her med-flighted to Boston Medical Center, a level 1 trauma center. These doctors in Salem did not have the tools necessary to treat such critical injuries, and had they not made the decision to fly her to Boston Medical, my mom would not be here today. The doctors at Boston Medical put my mom into a medically induced coma and put her on a ventilator, which would essentially breathe for her. They immediately removed her spleen in an attempt to stabilize her condition, and over the course of the next 7 days, they plated her elbow and ribs and put a rod into her left leg. However, by Monday morning, my mom had not been stabilized, and my dad made the decision that I should not see my mom before I went back to Taft that night. He was worried what seeing my mom in such an awful condition would do to me, and simply wanted to protect me from the horror of it. Although at first I was incredibly upset with my dad for making me come back to Taft, for making me leave my family when we needed each other the most, it was undoubtedly the best thing for me. The community and support you find here at Taft is unparalleled. I still remember the big hug my roommate Ellie greeted me with when I walked into my room that Monday night. I remember my advisor, Mr. Wilson, bringing me fresh baked cookies and comforting me as I told him what happened through tears and sobs. I remember students I wasn't particularly close with going out of their way to do nice things for me. I remember my friends making a get well card for my mom, even though many of them had never met her. I didn't realize it at the time, but it was at this point that the Taft community became like a second family to me. Although I couldn't be with my true family, I received the support and love that I needed at such a difficult time from the people at Taft. The following Sunday, I was finally allowed to see my mom, as they had taken her out of the coma and removed the ventilator. Seeing my strong, courageous mom reduced to skin and bones and bandages was incredibly upsetting, but being with her again made all the sadness worth it. I wrote a paper for my freshman English class with Mrs. Mack about this first visit to the hospital, and the comfort I received from not only her, but from all 12 students in the class was truly incredible. That is just how students and teachers are here at Taft. When they see someone struggling or having a hard time, they reach out and help them in any way possible. I believe students here pride themselves on not turning their back on people in need, but instead offering to be that pillar of support so crucial to recovery. Taft has the most supportive, generous, and compassionate students and faculty, and I will forever be thankful for everything Taft has done for me. A specific song that reminds me of the community here is the song Never Alone by Lady Antebellum. My favorite line, and what I think is the most powerful line, is the verse, "When hard times have found you and your fears surround you, wrap my love around you, you're never alone." Each and every one of you is part of the Taft community, and although at times you may feel like you're on your own, you will never truly be alone here. Thank you.